This is Optimal Living Daily, episode 275, Why Are You Doing? By Derek Sivers of Sivers.org, plus an Optimal Living Daily podcast update from me, Justin Malik. Welcome back to OLD if you're a frequent oldie, or if you're new here, this is where I read personal development blogs to you so you don't have to read it to yourself. I hunt down big bloggers and bother them until I get permission to read their content right here on this podcast, and it's been working so far. I'm really happy with the authors that have joined this show. It's pretty amazing. And now if you are new here, this is going to be a unique episode, so don't judge this podcast based on this one episode. Unless you end up loving this episode, in that case, all the episodes are like this. Okay, not really, but anyway, today's different because I feel like I need to do a little update on the direction of this show, which I'll save for the end. I'm still going to read a post from Derek Sivers for our occasional Sivers Sunday episode, but it is a shorter post, just so I don't take too much of your time when I start talking about the journey of this podcast at the end. And Derek Sivers always seems to have a post that fits with what I'm thinking about in the moment. And when I was thinking about what I should read today, I first went to his site because it is Sunday and I love to keep the Sivers Sunday thing going whenever I can. And I looked at his most recent post and it's titled, Why Are You Doing? And without even reading it, I knew this would be a perfect segue into me talking about this podcast, why I'm doing it, where it's going, the future of it, all that kind of stuff. It's like it was meant to be. Kind of crazy how that happens sometimes. So that's why I'm reading this post today, and I think that's enough of an intro, so let's get right to it and start optimizing your life. Why Are You Doing? By Derek Sivers of Sivers.org. The most important thing in life is to know why you are doing what you're doing. Most people don't know. They just go with the flow. Social norms are really powerful. The inputs that influence you are really powerful. A great video, talk, or book can convince you that you should be acting and thinking like that. But the worst thing in life would be a deathbed regret that you spent your life pursuing what someone said you should want instead of what you really want. For example, if you really want to make a lot of money, you need to admit that. If you really want to be famous, you need to pursue that. If you really want freedom and no responsibilities, or to learn as much as possible, or whatever else, you need to realize it and embrace it. But whatever you decide, you need to optimize for that and be willing to let go of the others. You can't diffuse your energy trying to do a little bit of everything, or you'll always be in conflict with yourself. For example, one way to make money is to take on a lot of responsibility, which means letting go of some freedoms. One way to get famous is to let others make more money while you take the spotlight. I learned this living in Los Angeles when I was friends with some famous Hollywood actors and realized they're not as rich as you'd think. The richest people in Hollywood are the ones you've never heard of because they've optimized their career for money. They know others are willing to take less money in return for more fame, so they profit from the other side of that deal. Maybe the most important thing to you is learning or creating or giving. Maybe it's how many people's lives you can influence. Maybe it's how deeply you can influence just a few people's lives. Once you realize it and admit it, you need to pursue it. Like if you want freedom, then you own a business but delegate all the work. You won't be learning or creating or giving as much as you could with a different strategy, but that's okay. You know freedom is what you're after. Sometimes your best strategy is counterintuitive. Like if you have a high-paying job but realize that charitable giving is what matters most to you, then the best strategy is not to quit your job and go hang mosquito nets in Africa, but actually to keep your job and make as much money as you can while spending it on hiring hundreds of people in Africa to hang thousands of mosquito nets. Unless your goal is more about looking charitable instead of actually being charitable, then admit that to yourself too. But whatever you choose, brace yourself because people are always going to tell you you're wrong. That's why you need to know why you're doing what you're doing. Know it in advance. Use it as your compass and optimize your life around it. Let the other goals be secondary. So when those decision moments come, you can choose the value that you already know matters most to you. You just listened to the post titled, Why Are You Doing? By Derek Sivers of Sivers.org. A question that I love to ask people is, if you won the lottery today, what would you be doing with your life in a month? Or maybe not the lottery because that's super extreme, but let's say like early retirement. Let's say you had enough money to maybe buy a good size home outright and you didn't have a mortgage payment and your bills were covered for the rest of your life. And people who love to travel might just do that. Go to as many places as possible. A friend once told me that he'd leverage his house to buy more real estate, which got me thinking, okay, that's cool, but for what? And I think he said he'd do it again and then buy more. And again, I have to ask, for what? Why? What's the reason? To get more money? Okay, and then what? To spend it? I don't have a problem with his answer, and I'm not judging. I'm just really curious because I don't even know my own answer completely. And even put it right back on me when I kept going with the question. So I thought about it. Would I keep doing this podcast? Actually, I do think so. Now, why? Well, first, when I get feedback, usually in the form of email, it's almost always incredibly positive and motivating. It makes me feel like I'm making a difference, even if it's just in your life. If you're listening and have sent me an email, I want you to know that you are why I'm still doing this. That's one big reason. Another, and you know this if you're a longtime listener, is that I have performance anxiety, often really, really bad. So this is a way for me to work on that, to speak more, and I think that's something I need in my life. Now fame, not really, but honestly, if someone came up to me and asked me on the street if I'm Justin from OLD and I've never seen them before in my life, I would be flattered and it would make my day, or week even, so yeah, that'd be cool, but not like one of my major goals of this podcast. But the other reason is that deep down, I am a serial entrepreneur. I have been for as long as I can remember. I love creating things. My Myers-Briggs personality type is called the craftsman. It doesn't get more straightforward than that. Podcasting, or narrating really, has become a craft for me in the last 9 months. And while it's incredibly frustrating at times, overall I do enjoy it. And I also enjoy the possibility of it being an entrepreneurial venture, something sustainable that can pay its own bills plus some, so that I can live my life actually doing this, reading to you every single day, and even pay some people to do the stuff that takes up so much time, like editing. And that's just one little piece of it. I've been doing this for 275 episodes. That's 275 straight days of doing this, reaching out to authors, some of which require me to ask them about every single post I read here on the show, recording, which I can't do in my own home because I want it as quiet as possible for you so that the quality is great. So I drive to my family's house, which is 20 minutes one way, and I mess up a lot. I try to edit out gross mouth noises to the best I can, which is super tedious. Editing one episode can easily take an hour or more, not to mention working on the other two newer podcasts, Optimal Finance Daily and Optimal Health Daily. And I tracked my time fairly recently. That week, I worked 55 hours. That's almost 1.5 times the typical American worker. And my salary, well, it's coming out of the money that I previously made. It's coming out of my business savings. I'm not doing this to complain. I just want to tell you up front what's really going on. And I do want this to become sustainable, to get to a level where I can say, yes, this is working as a business model and something I can keep doing for another year or more. I want to keep helping you and see those stories in my email box of personal change that have happened because of these podcasts. I really, really want that. But I don't want to keep begging for money, and the only other way I can see this getting to that level is by accepting sponsors of the show. And you know what? It took 275 episodes, 275 days of doing this, but there is one that's interested, and I do like their service. I could be mentioning them as soon as tomorrow on the show, but before that happens, I needed you to know why I would take on a sponsor. I think I've already made that clear. But you should also know that I would never just take any random sponsor that offered. That completely goes against this podcast. Like, I heard a podcast about podcasting just yesterday, actually, and the host was asking why someone would ever turn down a company that wanted to sponsor them. I almost fired back at him while I was listening out loud. But luckily, the guest of the podcast was quick to say that he totally encourages podcast hosts to turn down sponsors because they don't align with their values. I mean, can you imagine if my sponsor was Rolex watches and I'm here reading to you about minimalism in the same episode? What would that ad sound like? It'd be totally fake. And what would that do for my own credibility? It's essentially me saying, I don't care at all about this product, or you, my listener, hearing it. I just need this money. And that's not my style. I would only take on a sponsor if it's something I personally use and think you can benefit from. Most likely a service as opposed to an item or a thing, unless that thing is just as useful and value-adding as a service. So I want you to know that too. I don't take it lightly. I would never do it just to get the money. And I have turned down sponsorship opportunities in the past because I don't want you to think that I'm doing this just to make a quick buck. And now if you've contributed financially to the show, you have helped me so much to pay for the server that hosts these hundreds of audio files, my website, my mailing list, all that stuff. These are big expenses and you've kept it from shutting down because of financial viability issues. I really, really appreciate that. And maybe you're actually contributing monthly too. And now it's totally up to you. While I'm not doing sponsors in every episode, if this is a complete turnoff and you no longer can support monthly, fine, I totally get it. And I thank you for helping me reach the point where I can take on a sponsor. You can cancel your monthly payment and I won't be offended. I'll be thankful that you contributed in the first place. But again, these sponsorships won't be daily, maybe a couple episodes a week for now. And I am currently planning special bonus content for monthly contributors to the show. Or if you sent one big donation, you'd be included in that as well, just to be fair. So if you keep the monthly contribution going, you'll be receiving additional content that no one else will be receiving. I don't have a date on that yet. I'm sorry, just give me some time. But I want to do that for you as a thank you. So to just wrap this up, I want you to understand why I'm doing this podcast still, why I'm willing to take on occasional sponsors. And I really want to thank you, especially if you've contributed to the show. But if not, if you sent me an email, that's been so valuable for me too. Or if you never did either of those things and just simply listened to the show, I'm extremely thankful. And I hope that this podcast is making a positive influence in your life. It has for me. And I'm going to end this show with a voicemail I received very recently from a listener of the show. He gave me permission to play it. I couldn't express my gratitude for this message in words. I still can't really. I don't know how to respond to it. And I wanted to play it for you in hopes that it inspires you to keep listening, being an old friend of the show, and working on becoming a better person with an optimized life. So thank you again, and here's that message.
Hi, Justin. My name's Dane. I don't actually have a question. I just wanted to tell you guys how much you've done for me. So when I started listening to your show, I was kind of in the same position I'm in right now. I'm an epileptic who's living on SSI right now. I'm living on $730 a month. So I don't really have money to donate to you guys, but I wish I did. But I just want you to know, when I started listening to this show, I had no plans for life. I didn't think I could do anything at all. I played a little music, and I was kind of interested in computers. But just from listening to you guys' show, I've been constantly recording, and I just started learning C++ programming and how to use Linux and things like that. And I've really created a future for myself, or not created a future, but created goals for myself for my future. And I can really see the light at the end of the tunnel now. Before, I was always depressed and I just never saw a way out for myself. And now I have plans for getting out of this within the next year, and I can really see my way out of it. And actually, a lot of things have been opening up for me, and my life has just been a lot better. I just want you and your brother to know how much you guys have done for me. I've even invested money, which is something I never thought I would ever do. But I just want to thank you guys so much. Just thank you.